Okay, so it is no secret by now that anybody who has actually read the Blue Lock manga would consider the peak of the manga to be none other than the Japan U-20 game. High stakes, intense drama, the biggest stage we've seen up to this point, and by far some of the most iconic moments that we are ever going to see in the series. However, as are most topics when it actually comes to this community, it seems that everyone's split on one subject above all others, that being who was the true man of the match. So today, I wanted to take a look back at the Japan U-20 game and finally bring this debate to a close, settling once and for all who was the true MVP of the Japan U-20 match. But before we get into this, I just wanted to take a second and thank you guys once again for the continued support on this channel. We passed 13K not too long ago, and actually, as of me waking up and recording this, we hit 14K today, so genuinely, thank you guys so much. The growth has been absolutely absurd, and I really don't know how I could say thank you enough. We are on the road to 20K, so if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel with post notifications turned on so you never miss another banger from myself. And with that out the way, I think it's about time we get straight into this. Grab some snacks, fill those cups, and I've decided to be a bit nice today. I'm not going to slander any of your guys' moms, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so getting straight to the point, I have narrowed the possible candidates down to a top 4 that need to be discussed, but before I get into those 4, I have a few honorable mentions. First up, Oliver Aiku. By far the best defender we'd seen in the series at this point, Aiku makes his presence known from the very beginning, shutting down our MC as well as most of the Blue Lock 11, other than this motherfucker of course, but more on him later. Clutch stop after clutch stop, Aiku has to at least be mentioned in this discussion. Same goes for the man who stole Aiku's entire flow, the chameleon, Mikage Ryo. From the second he entered the match, it was known that he had one sole objective, and that was to stop the demon known as Shito Ryusei, which he managed to do pretty successfully, which is why I think he deserves to at least be mentioned right here. Other than Big Bang Drive, which in reality wasn't even his own fault, he can even be seen trying to cover for Gagamaru and get back to the goal in time, Shito was pretty silent once Ryo began to mark him, and thus he deserves to be an honorable mention. Quick shoutouts really quick to Nagi for starting off the scoring, Baro for saving the game with his unpredictable egoist hunt, leading to that clutch game-tying score, as well as the lesser showcase players such as Bachira, Karasu, Gagamaru, who became the literal goalkeeping GOAT, Nico, Yukimiya, and even Hiyori, who stepped up in crucial moments when given their time to shine. Okay, that settles it for honorable mentions. Time to get into the heavy hitters. And there's no better place to start than with Blue Lock's hand-selected ace, Itoshi Rin. Strictly taking a look at Rin's play throughout the match, I feel like it's safe to say he makes the strongest case for MVP out of the bunch, maybe besides one person. It makes sense given that this game was the culmination of literally all of his hard work as he finally gets the chance to get revenge against his brother. Throughout the match, Rin boasts an impressive stat line of 1 goal, that being his Travella against Oliver Aiku, which doesn't get nearly as much hype as it deserves, with 1 technical assist coming from the deflection in the game's closing stages, alongside not 1, not 2, but 3 clutch defensive stops. The feats that go along with this as well are absolutely absurd, such as the aforementioned Travella on the #1 defender, the clutch last minute save that preserved Blue Lock's lead going into halftime, stopping Shito with his dome when no one else was in position to, and of course, when he awakened into his berserker form, arguably the best flow state we've seen up to this point in the manga. Now, stats and feats aren't the only thing we can go off of, however, as Rin's presence alone was probably the biggest factor in this match. As already stated, Rin was selected to be the focal point of Blue Lock's lineup. This is due to him not only boasting the most impressive third selection performance and goal scoring capability, but also due to Rin's evolution being the key to victory in this match, as stated by Ego himself, who we can see crediting Rin for being the catalyst in moments such as Nagi's opening goal, saying that it was Rin's improvisation that birthed the opportunity to score. However, one of the most important things that Rin achieved throughout the match was not only his own evolution, but the evolution of another individual. Someone who lurked in the shadow of Itoshi Rin throughout the entire match, waiting for his time to strike. That individual is none other than the egoist Isagi Yoichi. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. I do not believe Isagi makes the strongest case for MVP. However, let's just examine the evidence really quick, and then we can decide how we feel, alright? Now, sadly, for most of the match, even though he is our MC, Isagi is actually pretty silent. Mediocre stats with only 1 goal, and other than a quick offensive push at the start, which was quickly thwarted by Aiku, as well as acting as the decoy for Rin to score, he doesn't really do much in that first half. However, it was the second half when the egoist really kicked shit into gear. Similar to what we talked about with Rin, Isagi was the heart of Blue Lock in the second half, as stated by Toshi Sai himself. It's not even one Toshi that says it, even Rin admitted as much, stating that at some point in the match, the game began to revolve around Isagi rather than himself, using his vision to get the ball down the pitch, all with the end result leading him to score a goal. We see this attempted many times, yet thwarted by both Oliver Aiku as well as Toshi Sai, and considering these were the only 2 that were actually stopping him, maybe we should cut the guy some slack. However, these attempts were crucial to the game, as while Sai may have stopped Isagi from scoring, the door for Baro Shoei to steal the spotlight was wide open. This alongside his clutch stop on the corner kick, where I believe he manages to surpass Rin, at least for an instant. We see that in this moment he accounted for not only Sai and Shito, but also Rin's positioning, as he kept all within his vision, allowing him to judge and react to the most dangerous area, that being Rin's dead zone. This serves as an even more important moment in the grand scheme of things, as it was this which finally made Rin snap, unlocking his berserker flow. All of this, however, is overshadowed by one moment, arguably the greatest moment in the entirety of the series, Isagi scoring the game-winning goal and becoming the hero of Japan. Like I already said, I believe Isagi's performance began a little bit too slow for him to actually be considered the man of the match. However, while not only being our MC and having plot armor, Isagi's performance cannot be denied, as he was one of the most important players on the pitch, especially in the second half. If this wasn't the case, he wouldn't have gotten acknowledged by Aiku, Sai, and the entirety of the world. Okay, while on the topic of those acknowledged by Itoshi Sai, we gotta talk about someone who I believe the majority of people would jump to saying was the actual man of the match of the U-20, and that's for a good reason. Yes, that's right. It's time to discuss Shito Ryusei. Taking a look at the stats here, Shito was responsible for drilling 2 of the most jaw-dropping goals into the back of the net, and that's all. This man simply has 2 goals, no assists, no real defensive stops. He got carded, had the highest amount of shots on goal, and let's be for real, was heavily assisted by Itoshi Sai. But if you were to ask 100 people who the MVP of the U-20 match was, I'm sure Shito would probably have the first or second most votes out of that entire pool. I go in depth about his U-20 performance in my video where I analyze Rin vs Shito. You can go check that out if you want a little bit more explanation to go along with every single one of the feats. However, due to the fact that Shito only has 2 feats, I'm just gonna blitz right through this. Shito being subbed in at halftime, yeah, wrap your head around all of this happening in basically 20 minutes, made an aggressive advance down the field, leading to Nico having to take a foul to stop the score. This was useless, however, as this led to the Dragon Drive, one of the 2 super goals Shito scored in this game. This goal does get heavily downplayed in debates, as people try to say that Itoshi Sai basically carried this entire thing because no one else could have made that pass, but the fact of the matter is you can't discredit this for either party. When considering this goal, in my opinion at least, only Sai could have made that pass, and only Shito could have made that goal. And that's the plain and simple fact of the matter. It wasn't one carrying the other. It wouldn't have been able to happen if it was anybody else besides those 2. But now to turn our attention to a goal that was basically all Shito, a shot which echoed throughout the world, a gorgeous maneuver he refers to as Big Bang Drive. What can I say that hasn't been said already? This is absolute insanity. Shito not only put up 2 of the strongest striker feats we've seen, but he did so within 20 minutes. Completely turning the tide of the game in favor of the U-20 team and even killing the hopes of Jinpachi Ego himself. With all this laid out though, I can't give it to Shito. Firstly, because once Ryo actually subbed in, Shito was kind of silent, but also due to the fact that some of his feats are heavily assisted by one individual, the child prodigy who is equally as gifted on the pitch as he is at being a dickhead of a brother. Of course, the 4th and final player we need to discuss is Itoshi Sai. I mean, come on. Do I need to explain this? Going into the match, Sai was hyped up to no end by the head of the JFU, interviewers, not to mention the announcers and fans who sent echoes of his name throughout the entirety of Japan as the game commenced. And oh boy, when it was his time to shine, dear God, he did not disappoint. Taking the ball down the field on the first push of the game and nearly assisting Sendao, who unfortunately sold the bag pretty hard, if I do say so myself, leading to Sai reacting to the loose ball first and scoring a goal from a ridiculously tight angle. This being his only goal of the game. However, he did have 2 assists as I mentioned before, those being Dragon Drive and Big Bang Drive, both scored by Shito. 1 goal, 2 assists, and an insane amount of defensive stops, halting the likes of both Isagi and Rin in their tracks with relative ease. Not to mention the fact that basically at will he could shred through the entire defense on his own, and it's no wonder he had all this hype behind him. There's a reason that Sai was stated to be the star of the match, and his performance backs that up, as I truly think he carried the entire team with the exception of maybe Aiku and Shito. Not only did he assist 2 of the goals, but he seemed to create countless numbers of opportunities for the players to score, even though that never actually came to pass. Nevertheless, all we can truly account for is what actually happened, and in my opinion, that can be summed up as a dominant display from Itoshi Sai. Okay, so where does that leave us? As I said, it kind of boiled down to these 4, but if we're being honest, there's only 2 that we really need to talk about, and that's the Itoshi brothers. Immediately, if I was to just not think of the answer, not go in depth, I'd give it to Itoshi Sai. Not only was he by far the most dominant player on the field, but he has probably the most impressive stats out of anybody in the game, as well as being the most impactful presence for the entire 90 minutes of the game. If you want to argue that you can't be the man of the match if you lost the game, then I have no problem giving it to Rin, as I feel like his clutch defensive stop in the game's closing stages against Itoshi Sai could honestly argue into his favor. But if we're being quite honest here, and it shouldn't have been a shock to anybody, the man of the match for the Japan U-20 game is without a doubt Itoshi Sai. Okay, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much to every single one of you who tuned in. As always, I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, as well as consider subscribing to the channel. As I mentioned earlier, we are on the road to 20K, so it would mean the world to me if you hit that subscribe button, as well as turning on post notifications so you never miss another banger from myself. Let me know in the comments down below who you guys think was the true man of the match of the Japan U-20 game, and that's all I got for you today. Love you guys. Take it easy.